to go straight to Professor Dimitrios Giannoulopoulos, if I may, who is a professor of law and human rights lawyer and the chair of Goldsmiths Law School. And he and his colleagues have prepared an appeal, an international appeal, and he's going to talk to us about the need to find a way. It's not easy because of, obviously, the criminal aggressor has a veto on the United Nations Security Council, so that makes it difficult to bring these people to justice. But I'm going to hear now from Dimitrios about this initiative, how we can support it. And of course, every time I talk to a lawyer, what they want is evidence. They've got very good arguments, but they need the evidence. And so again, it's not just information that you're giving, it's also evidence, which I hope one day will be used to bring these people to justice. Dimitrios, perhaps we can hear from you for a few minutes. Hopefully you can stay with us until after 11:30, and then we'll open it up to further discussion. But Dimitrios, over to you, please.
Thank you very much, Roger, for your extremely kind and generous words and your reception, as always. I mean, first and foremost, as we have previously said, the New Europeans is an intellectual, radical space that accommodates free and liberal spirits, and that has always been of great value, of intrinsic value. In recent times, in recent crises, when we were confronted with recent crisis, how involved we were in the debate about Brexit, for instance, and of course that is of a completely different magnitude, of course, compared to what we are witnessing now. On the other hand, they can also be put together, and we already had the signs of a disunited Europe that might not be able or well placed to confront external aggressors. And here we are confronted with the most violent, the most barbaric of aggressors that we could ever imagine. And we lost crucial time over the last few years, speaking about fish and speaking about the most mundane, in the grand scheme of things, of course, most mundane perspectives. And for reasons of political expediency, missing on that wider vision that we needed to do everything we can to protect Europe, to defend European values, to defend values that are intrinsic, that are central to our liberal democracies. And so here we are, faced with this dire situation, and in darkness we see light. We see light, and I'm not reading any words, it's coming from within. It's the words that Lina's speech today, Lina's invaluable contribution has immediately triggered. Because, who am I to talk about law when we are faced with untold tragedy in Ukraine right now? So your words, this is where we need to focus. What is happening on the ground, how people are suffering, the bombs falling, and the hundreds of people, including children, including newborns, including young people, including vulnerable senior people that cannot flee the war, that are now isolated in parts of Ukraine that are facing untold catastrophes. So again, as a prelude to what I have to say, a very big thanks, Lina, for the work that you and your colleagues are doing. And we hope that, everything we can do, again, does not compare with what you're doing there on the ground. But it's just a desperate, if you like, attempt to show our solidarity, even if it's simple, through simple words, and even if this happens thousands of miles away from where you are experiencing Russian aggression. And I know there will be critics, commentators, those that do not necessarily empathize with the force that the law can have, at least as a communicative mechanism, and we will say this is a distraction. We don't need that. We don't need letters that are empty of substance. They might critique. I take it, and I'm appreciative of that this is not the position that New Europeans take or others here take. And Lina, again, we find support in your words. any ways in which we can show our appreciation and support and solidarity to Ukraine, we hope it is of assistance to people there. So let me come briefly now to our initiative. So a number of us at Goldsmiths, the University of London, the Department of Law, which has been set up with the ambition to do activist legal work. And we know high senior officials in this government, senior politicians do not like the word activist, and they have attacked us for that. I mean, they have attacked human rights activists in the UK previously. They're now speaking about the role of international law and the role of international human rights and how important they are in potentially helping us confront the situation in Ukraine. But I must say, you will excuse me for highlighting the hypocrisy there, because in the UK, we have actively fought against international law, the rule of law, international human rights for quite a few years now. So that has emboldened, dictators like Putin to say, well, they don't respect human rights. They cannot hold me to account. So this is what this initiative is about, holding Russia to account for their unlawful aggression, which is in direct breach of international law. And as we now see, the bombardment of the maternity hospital yesterday is the greatest illustration of blatant barbaric violations of international humanitarian law and international law. So a number of us at Goldsmiths got together, put down on paper some words. It is a letter that is calling upon the UK, the United States, France as the 3 permanent members out of the 5 in the Security Council to hold Russia to account, to ensure that Russia will accept eventually the jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court and the International Court of Justice. And failing that, because it's extremely unlikely that those who have no respect whatsoever for international law will suddenly accept the jurisdiction of these 2 key legal institutions. So if that fails, we are proposing that ad hoc tribunals, like the ones that we have seen attempt to deliver justice in the former Yugoslavia, in Rwanda, the special tribunals, the ad hoc tribunals, that these should come into action and provide protection. I would be very keen to, perhaps, if I have a few minutes, maybe another minutes, to go through our letter,
yes,
and to do justice to those colleagues at Goldsmiths with whom we put it together, and then to the dozens of experts from across the UK, legal academics, political scientists, scholars in other disciplines, and then barristers, solicitors, prosecutors, NGO experts, everyone that we are working with at Goldsmiths, and then other people and organizations that we didn't know, but that have supported this initiative. We are, of course, very grateful to New Europeans and to Roger more specifically and personally for their continued support to initiatives of this nature. So I'm reading. We, academics and visiting professors at the Department of Law at Goldsmiths University of London, as well as academic scholars from around the world, barristers, solicitors, and other legal professionals, NGO experts and politicians that we are working with, and everyone else providing their support to this letter. And here, everyone here would also be very welcome to provide support. We condemn the Russian Federation's criminal aggression and all that follows from it. Russia's aggressive criminal military attack is contrary to Article 2, subsection 4 of the United Nations Charter and customary international law, which prohibit the threat or use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state. The invasion orchestrated by President Putin meets the test of criminal aggression under Article 8 bis of the International Criminal Court's Rome Statute. Putin and other Russian military and civilian leaders are criminally responsible, we repeat, for the crime of aggression. The indiscriminate and widespread killings of civilians engineered by President Putin constitute war crimes and crimes against humanity. The shelling of civilian populations is a barbaric act. In view of the imminent risk of irreparable harm to the right to life, prohibition of torture, and right to family life, the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg, where Roger and others are joining us from today, has already asked Russia to refrain from further military attacks against civilians and civilian objects. This is the interim measures dating back to the 1st of March this month. In a historic moment also at the UN General Assembly, on the very day that we were writing this letter, on the 2nd of March, 141 member states voted a draft resolution on aggression against Ukraine, deploring, rightly, in the strongest terms, Russian aggression against Ukraine, demanding that the Russian Federation immediately cease its use of force against Ukraine, and also demanding that the Russian Federation immediately, completely, and unconditionally withdraw all of its military forces from the territory of Ukraine. And at the International Criminal Court, following the unprecedented referral from 39 states parties of the situation in Ukraine, the ICC prosecutor has announced his decision to immediately proceed with active investigations in the situation, adding that the court's work in the collection of evidence has already commenced. So, what should the next steps be for the international legal order? Prosecuting Putin before the International Criminal Court for the crime of aggression appears compromised because neither Ukraine nor Russia is party to the Rome Statute, although Ukraine, unlike Russia, has accepted jurisdiction. We can also assume that referral by the UN Security Council on the basis of Article 15 of the statute would be blocked, obstructed by Russia using its veto power. In addition, whilst we recognize it is highly unlikely for the International Court of Justice to accept it has jurisdiction to establish whether, let alone find that, the Russian Federation has perpetrated the crime of genocide on Ukrainian territory, we welcome Ukraine's application to the ICJ under the Genocide Convention. Russia has justified its intervention in Ukraine on baseless, we know, arguments that Ukraine was perpetrating a genocide in some of its eastern regions. We support the view that this gives rise to a dispute as to the interpretation of the Genocide Convention, and we urge the International Court of Justice to send a strong signal of the vitality of the international justice system by adopting provisional measures pursuant to Ukraine's request. In the midst of tragedy, when monstrous evil appears in full view, the courage of the Ukrainian defense and the strength of international support give us hope. Realization comes with appreciation of past failings, however, of the international legal order. We, the peoples of Europe, share responsibility, we have to admit that, with our legal and political institutions for not reacting with sufficient strength and courage to the violent failing dominoes, Georgia, Crimea, Donetsk, Luhansk, and for harboring oligarchs, including in the UK, including in London. We also have responsibility for not being interested enough in strengthening international law. This never featured high in election manifestos, unlike populist attacks on European human rights. Public realization of the unfolding tragedy in Ukraine presents now a unique opportunity to renew our commitment to international law and international human rights. But public realization may be through a short-lived window of time that will close once the war is over or settled in some way. While the window is still open, politicians around the globe must use public empathy with Ukraine's plight as a driver to move the international society forward and the Russian war machine backwards, and to ensure never again is not just empty words. The public now expect Putin to be brought to a swift and effective trial. They expect all the procedural and institutional limitations of prosecution to be swept aside. They demand the absurdity of the Security Council, sabotaged as it is by the veto powers of those responsible for war crimes, aggression, and crimes against humanity, to be exposed and ended. The UK, the United States, and France, the 3 permanent 5 members of the Security Council, should play a leading role in this process. putting political pressure on Russia to accept the authority of both the ICJ and the ICC for judicial resolution of all these matters. It is a matter of reckoning for China too, which has the opportunity to support the above action. If Russia refuses, the international legal order should press for an immediate and swift ad hoc justice mechanism to bring Putin and those around him to justice. Thank you very much for your attention, and thank you very much for your continued support.